former campaign rival Vivek Ramaswamy, and Elon Musk to head a new government department. Reading from his statement, I'm pleased to announce that the great Elon Musk, working in conjunction with American patriot Vivek Ramaswamy, will lead the Department of Efficiency, DOGE.
President-elect Donald Trump has tapped business executives Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead a new advisory commission with the goal of slashing government spending and regulations. Musk had the idea to form the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE for short. And yes, that's the nickname of a meme-based cryptocurrency that Musk once touted. Ramaswamy, a former pharmaceutical executive, argues that we have a fourth branch of government, the administrative state, that our founding fathers didn't envision. Removing the excess bureaucracy is going to be good for our economy and for our national spirit. A similar commission was actually founded during the Reagan White House. Trump advisors have pointed to the Grace Commission, a Reagan-era panel that recommended billions of dollars in spending cuts. Under that model, the commission identified hundreds of thousands of examples of wasteful government programs and regulations and called on Congress to approve the recommendations backed by the president. By the way, I should just note that that Reagan era ushered in the era of neoliberalism in America. So, not a great sign. Now, funny enough, forming a new government agency would mean adding more bureaucracy to the federal government. And there are a lot of questions about this effort, including how it'll be funded or whether its recommendations will be approved, considering lawmakers on Capitol Hill are tasked with making decisions about federal spending. With the Senate filibuster in place, which of course requires 60 votes to pass nearly any bill, it's unlikely Trump and his pals will get everything they want. Yes, Republicans control the Senate now with 53 seats, but that still fails to meet the 60 vote threshold. Congress is also responsible for approving any new federal agencies, spending cuts, and appropriations. So it's more likely that DOGE won't be an official government agency, but rather a group of advisors to Donald Trump. But still, there is a possibility that some of what Musk and Ramaswamy suggest will be carried out. Republicans are poised to control the House, Senate, and White House, giving the GOP the opportunity to implement at least some of the commission's proposals, potentially triggering major repercussions for the US government and millions of federal workers. But there is plenty to be skeptical about as well. Look, Trump's statement said the commission's work must be completed by no later than July 4th, 2026. Not long before the next midterm elections. I mean, Democrats could take control, if they play their cards right, which they probably won't. But nonetheless, some analysts are doubtful much will materialize from the effort. Congress must approve any changes to federal appropriations, and it is not clear if the Musk Commission will produce recommendations in time for action by the new GOP majorities. Now, putting all of these obstacles aside for a second, let's just assume that they will get their way and succeed in implementing significant cuts to federal programs and regulations. Like, what would that look like exactly? Well, Caitlin Collins explains. Let's watch.
We've heard them talk about $1 trillion in cuts, but when you look at how much money the federal government spent in the last fiscal year, it's close to $7 million, and over $7 trillion. Over $5 trillion of that has gone to healthcare, to Social Security, to veterans. So if they're cutting $1 trillion, they wouldn't really be able to do that without dipping into that. So I think there is a real question of how all this would work, because obviously spending for agencies is approved by Congress and the president, not by outside groups. And we have been told Elon Musk is not joining the federal government per se.
What Collins is saying there is definitely true, and Ramaswamy is on the record about reducing the government workforce by a whopping 75%, which is the same percentage of staff Elon Musk fired right after overpaying for Twitter. Now, Musk called for the commission to find $2 trillion in cuts to the federal budget, a sum far larger than the budgets of the Departments of Defense, Education, and Homeland Security combined, which even some conservative budget analysts have panned, including one who described it as absolutely absurd. While there certainly is some government waste, the $2 trillion number is hilariously overblown. Now, citing estimates from the nonpartisan Government Accountability Office, some conservative budget estimates have said there are tens of billions in savings available from cutting waste and fraud, but not much more. The government slashing brigade, I should say, conflicts with some of the other agenda items that Donald Trump has. Like, we know that the president-elect wants to cut the corporate tax rate even further, which will, deprive the federal government of revenue necessary to operate. In fact, the president-elect has pitched more than $7 trillion in additional tax cuts, which really throws a monkey wrench into his plan to carry out mass deportations because you need money and lots of it to do that.
President-elect Trump says there's no price tag on his mass deportation plan. You estimate the cost of a one-time mass deportation operation to be at least $315 billion.
We know, for example, that the average cost of a single arrest of a fugitive in the community, a so-called at-large arrest, is over $6,600 per person and can take hundreds of man-hours. So if they want to ramp up enforcement, they're going to have to hire thousands of new agents. They're going to have to build thousands of new detention beds and hire hundreds of new immigration judges, and all of that is going to come at a cost of billions of dollars.
Yeah, so how exactly does Trump plan to cut taxes on corporations while spending a ton of money on mass deportations? And if he's planning to cut spending on Medicare, Social Security, and other social safety net programs to make up for tax cuts for the rich and to pay for mass deportations, well, Republicans will very likely experience a political bloodbath far more severe than what the feckless Democrats just got hit with this time around. I also need to vent just for a second about Musk's disdain for the government, which I find totally fascinating considering how much wealth he has generated with the help of federal contracts and subsidies. Musk's rocket company, SpaceX, effectively dictates NASA's rocket launch schedule. The Defense Department relies on him to get most of its satellites to orbit. His companies were promised $3 billion across nearly 100 different contracts last year alone with 17 federal agencies. Now, Tesla and SpaceX account for at least $15.4 billion in government contracts. Look, if the federal government was giving me $15.4 billion, I don't know, I just feel like I'd be pretty happy with that, okay? But not Elon Musk. Something tells me that those deals that he's been getting won't be on the chopping block for the Doge. We'll see.
Look, I know the system feels broken and it's hard to engage with the news right now, but it's not the time to tune out. That's just letting the system go unchecked and unchallenged. We need to know what Trump and the Republican Party are up to, and we need Democrats to understand how they even got here in the first place. That's why I'm working with Ground News. They're an independent app and website that allows you to see through mainstream media narratives and keep both sides in check. For every story, you can swipe to see which news sources are reporting on it, even independent ones left out of the mainstream media bubble, with visual breakdowns of their political bias, credibility, and who's funding the conversation. Compare coverage and reveal essential stories that the left and the right aren't discussing. Take a break from the chaos, but don't check out and let others shape your future. Demand transparency in the leaders who are supposed to serve you and the news to accurately inform you. Go to ground.news/TYT or scan the QR code to take advantage of Ground News' biggest sale of the year. You can save 50% on their top tier Vantage plan, which is what we use, and stay informed without getting overwhelmed by what's going to happen in the next 4 years, because we are the power behind democracy, not just bystanders in a rigged game.